again for our this mentorship session series number 18. In a previous series, number 13, we have already interacted with three of our very important incubatees, Manasi, Dr. Rashmi, and Jyoti. And today in this particular mentorship session, we are going to introduce you all with our another set of incubatees where we will be having interaction with Chesta, Deepti, and most probably Kanchan also. She joins. And because she is now having a meeting with her supplier from Bombay. So we will have to see that by that time whether she will be able to join this particular series of session or not. Today we are going to have our first session from Chesta Agrawal. Chesta Agrawal is alumna of our university, Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. And apart from that, she has also incorporated a company with the name of Ease Studies Private Limited. Many of you might not be knowing that Ease Studies Private Limited is a leading company from Delhi NCR in edutech sector, and they are having different courses both online and offline. They are running for the students from Delhi presently. More light will be given, maybe given by Chesta when she will be interacting with you. So all of my students, those who belong to Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University, you all must be knowing about the concept of incubating. We are incubator and we are having a total 12 incubatees with us, out of which 8 are either our students or our alumna. So the first alumna who joined our incubation center was Jyoti. Jyoti is having a company into drone technology basically. And in the fourth batch, second, we are having Chesta with us. What we are doing with the incubators? You all must be knowing we are facilitating them with all the facilities which are required for anyone to start a company. Apart from that, we also facilitate with some free seed fund. That seed fund is against equity as per the mandate of our incubation center. So to ease the studies also, we have given a basic seed fund to start with. It is our privilege, Chesta, to welcome you on behalf of Anveshan Foundation. She will be talking with digital healthcare ecosystem in India. You know, after COVID, at least digital healthcare and edutech that is coming as a leading sectors in front of all of us. So again, I welcome you, Chesta. Now it's your turn. You can start sharing your screen if you have any presentation.
Thank you
Director
so much,
of
sir, for the warm welcome. And I'm really obliged to have a session on digital healthcare, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic seen all over the world. I am basically, we are dealing with eStudies Private Limited as a firm which deals with different courses regarding the virtual education. And all of us knows that in today's scenario, the education has been over the past 1 year, it has been converted from the offline mode of education to the virtual education, where right from the K-12 students to the higher education postgraduate, all the students are moving over to the virtual platform. So our eStudies Private Limited is basically helping students from across different platforms to study different courses on a virtual platform. But apart from that, today I'll be talking about another important factor which has engulfed all of our lives, which is basically a digital healthcare ecosystem. So just a moment before I share my slide.
Yeah, Chesta, if it is possible, can you switch on your camera?
Yeah, just a moment.
All of the students of IGD2W, please listen her carefully, because you also have an option to become an incubator and to start your own company.
Yes.
Yeah, Chesta, we all can see you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my screen must be visible now.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah. So, to begin with, we all know what a digital healthcare ecosystem is. It's basically we are trying to digitize the entire healthcare ecosystem, whether it is from visiting our doctors for our checkups, for our consultations, for our prescriptions, or the for our pathological investigations, or for our pharmacy requirements, or the hospital requirements, or any of those, anything which is remotely located related to our healthcare sector is now being converted to a digital healthcare system. Now, the first and foremost point before I start with the presentation is, why has the need for a digital healthcare ecosystem suddenly arisen in this scenario? All of us know that the pandemic is there. So the lockdown constraint was the first constraint which made it mandatory to have some scenario, to have some facilities where we can go and use our basic where we can go and fulfill our basic requirements. So that was the first and the foremost thing, that the lockdown period had complete all the stores and everything was shut down, and we had just the basic few basic stores where we used to go and fulfill our requirements related to our medical supplies. Now, apart from those, related to this overall, like because of the ongoing pandemic scenario, ongoing COVID-19, or any of those flu scenarios, or any, for example, I would say not just this COVID-19 pandemic, any of the diseases, we always get fear. Like we recently had this bird flu scare in Delhi NCR. So all of us were quite scared about going to new places, going to places which are occupied by too many people, which are crowded places. So the need for consultations, for digital consultations, the teleconsultations was there. Now, if I don't know if any of you have heard about in your close ones about somebody with this COVID-19 infection, or any of requirement of any doctors or health or hospital visits, or any of these visits during this past 1 year. At least I had some, unfortunately. So in those, I literally saw the huge gap between the current infrastructure gap which is there in our healthcare system, especially in India. Even though we are there in the capital of the nation, which is NCR, the Delhi NCR region, but the infrastructure gap is just huge. It is not just, so I guess you might be able to relate to what is kind of infrastructure do we have in remote places, what kind of infrastructure do we have in tier 2, tier 3 cities, forget about the remote locations, remote villages. So the digital healthcare ecosystem is trying to bridge this gap. It's a major area where this gap can be built up, this gap can be fulfilled. Another, apart from the infrastructure, like we can build hospitals, we can build dispensaries, we can build labs, but one another major pitfall which was observed in this past 1 year was the lack of adequate supplies, the lack of adequate personnel who are enabled enough or equipped enough, both technically as well as logistically, to cater to the requirements of a huge populous country like India, and especially densely populated country. I would, rather than populous country, I would say densely populated country like India, where the spread of a disease is high because of the climatic situations, because of the lifestyle situations, lifestyle of our people, because of the um, I would say the density, and a number of n number of factors. So in our country, it's a major requirement to have a strong healthcare support system as a backbone, which is a huge, which is available in few different hospitals. Like if I talk about Delhi, we have n number of different hospitals. Like we have AIMS, we have a series of Max hospitals, we have a series of Fortis hospitals, we have a number of hospitals are there in Delhi. Escorts is there, Medanta is there in NCR, there are a number of hospitals, but still, even though so many hospitals are available, but it takes just a small virus to let us know that the requirement is huge and the availability is very short. So the demand supply, which we talk about any startup, when we're talking about how scalable is our startup, or how much how many people would be there as our consumers. So for that, we can see that the demand supply gap is huge in this digital healthcare ecosystem, or in our healthcare ecosystem. So digital healthcare ecosystem is not just about supplying medicines. It is not just about being able to consult a doctor online, being able to have teleconsultations with a doctor. It's not just about calling your nearest pharmaceutical shop, or it's not just about Nedmeds or Easy Pharmacy or any of those online pharmaceuticals, like medicines delivery uh, portals, where we can just order our medicines and they can be delivered to us. The digital healthcare ecosystem ranges right from your if I talk about training of the medical personnel, it talks about being able to supply like the online pharmacies, the medical stores are there, those. Then teleconsultations or virtual consultations, both uh, like for our mental behavior, as which is again a very important criteria, very important factor when we are talking about this past 1 year or the COVID-19 pandemic, because the COVID-19 pandemic has not just hit us biologically, it has hit us mentally as well, and more importantly, it has hit us mentally. So the requirement for the mental behavior clinics, or the doctors, or those, that entire arena, that entire setup is, the requirement is huge, because India as a country still needs to recognize that yes, mental behavior, mental health is important. So first of all, with a country like India, it takes a huge effort to let people know that yes, we need to take care of our mental health. And then to find, if somebody knows that they need a mental care, to find a suitable place in this ongoing pandemic situation, that is huge. So understanding this huge gap, we can see that we have an estimated about 4,800 health tech startups which are using our cutting edge technologies. Like the cutting edge technologies which are currently being used are deep learning technologies, which are ranging right from artificial intelligence to blockchain, machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain. All of these are being used to in different segments of our healthcare systems, and they are all being used to help us fight this coronavirus pandemic in India. So, and these 4,800 health startups are just a few of the startups which have been recognized over the past 1 year by the government of India. There are, if you talk about the global level, there are a huge number of startups which have come up in this area, and they have received immense funding. If you're talking about whether it is seed funding or whether it is angel funding or whatever, at different levels of their startups, they have received huge funding, and they are receiving good response, because all of us are just too scared to move out of our places right now. So we all know that we all have this mantra these days, that stay home, stay safe. So if you are staying at home, we need to take care of our, apart from our other requirements, we need to take care of our health care, medical requirements, so that are being easily taken care of by these healthcare startups. So I already discussed that the impact of this COVID-19 is not just that because of the social distancing and lockdown rules which are there in place, we have different healthcare platforms which have allowed people to avail online consultations, which have allowed people to have the treatments done online, not just consultations, the treatment. The treatments can be therapy treatments on the consultations, like mental, those psychotherapeutic consultations. They are being done through, they are being done either virtually, that is virtually through both ways, online as well as tele. with the help of mobile phones, or if somebody is quite equipped with the internet services and everywhere, then online consultations are being done. If for remote places, teleconsultations are being done these days. Diagnostic tests are instead of all of us accumulating at one place and going for our test, we these days a lot of us are preferring doorstep investigations, like pick up of our blood samples, pick up of our tests, and not just blood samples. These days there are a number of startups which have come up with x-rays, medical imaging, and all sorts of those portable equipments are being carried with the healthcare personals to perform a test at our places. So there are startups which are dealing with those that level of investigations, pathological investigations. Then this is something which I suppose all of us must have used at some point of time, which is medicines delivered at their doorsteps. At least I have been doing it for the past few days. We have the medicines being delivered. So all of these are just a few of the areas where healthcare platforms have been, tele platforms or the online platforms have come up. Different services are being provided by the different healthcare startups. We'll be discussing few healthcare startups as we progress with the presentation. Now, this is something which we all know about, which is the Arogya Setu app. And it is not just any app which has been forced upon us, but it is the most effective app for us in Indian environment. The government of India has introduced this Arogya Setu app for people to self-assess themselves against the deadly virus and give them alerts or warning messages where if you have come across somebody who is there in a high risk zone. And if we are talking about other countries at the global level, we have different similar apps like Arogya Setu, which give the details about individuals, not just to the person concerned, but also to the healthcare facilities, their nearest healthcare facilities. For example, if I have come across somebody with infection or with potential carrier of the infection, who can be a potential carrier of the infection, the app just not they just don't alert the person, they won't just alert me, they would alert the nearest healthcare centers at my place that I, Chesta, have might be a potential carrier. So the data is not just there with me, the data is not just there with the government, it is also there with my nearest healthcare center, so that whatever first care requirements I have, those can be met right at the nearest healthcare service provider, instead of me waiting for the entire process, that is waiting for the infection to affect me, and then getting my test done, then getting my diagnosis done, getting the consultations done, and then informing the government that yes, I have been infected. So instead of waiting for that entire 1 week period of time, the data is available with the nearest healthcare providing providers, so that the alerts can be sent more effectively and the virus can be contained more efficiently and effectively. So this Arogya Setu app is not just any healthcare app which monitors our daily requirement, which monitors our daily health status. It also checks upon what are my chances of being a potential carrier. Okay, and if I happen to be in a risk zone, and what are the preventive methods which I need to take care of. All those guidelines are there. Also, apart from these, if I happen to travel somewhere which is a very let's say a place where the infection is supposedly very high, so it gives me those guidelines, and it gives me those set of guidelines which I need to follow so that my travel to that place is easier. Or if some other investigations have been made, or some other guidelines have been set by the government, those guidelines can be reached out to me easily, and I can easily follow them rather than me visiting that place and then getting surprised, oh, I never knew that these guidelines had been enforced by the government. Okay, so this Arogya Setu app is not just about a analysis, about it's not just an app for self analysis, it is a wholesome package which is just the beginning step in our Indian scenario of a potential strong digital healthcare system, which would alert the consumer, it would alert the government, it would alert the nearby whatever stakeholders are there. So these are few of the references in Indian context where these healthcare startups are working. I would come up with this a little later in my presentation. We have here about few startups which are doing the top 10 startups or the top 50 startups. This one deals about top 10 startups which are there in the health tech domain. We are using AI, artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning techniques for their different domains. This one talks about the medical startups in India, the top 50 medical startups in India, which have, and the funding, kind of funding they have received at what different levels. Now, this is something which I would talk about next, since Anveshan Foundation is a incubation center which plans to bridge the gap between the academia and the industry. So there is this industry academic initiative, which is not just any industry academic initiative. This talks about specifically about the healthcare industry and the academic initiative. So these days we have this one particularly deals with a collaboration between Wiproji Healthcare and IISc Bangalore. If all of you must have heard about the Indian Institute of Sciences Bangalore, they have partnered up to set up a healthcare innovation lab. This healthcare innovation lab, they are trying to solve some of the toughest healthcare challenges using artificial intelligence and machine learning there. So this is just one example of a partnership between a Wipro healthcare industry setup and the academia, which is the IISc Bangalore. Their research has been started. Not just earlier research used to be limited to the health institutes, but now the not just health institutes, we have the industry and the academia working together and using our engineering technologies to bridge this gap. We have a few other startups are there, like Triple IT Hyderabad has also come up with this collaboration. Then Triple IT Delhi has also come up with this collaboration. Almost quite a good number of institutes have come up with this collaboration with different healthcare initiatives to solve these healthcare challenges using the technology, and not just providing a web portal for providing the services. It's not just maintaining the patient's records. It has not just been limited to providing medicines at their doorstep. It is not just limited to just analysis of the analysis of the which particular patient is more likely to be affected by some disease. These days we have healthcare startups which are analyzing our reports, which are analyzing our X-ray machines, our X-ray reports, which are analyzing our MRI scans, which are analyzing our different CT scans to identify if a particular patient is, or if a particular person is more likely to be infected by a particular disease. Now, if you have heard about, we have different uh, these days technology helps us analyze the image analysis is being done to analyze the different images and find out whether a person, to detect tumors. the malignant tumors, the cancerous tumors. So investigation and research is being done at the level to bridge the gap, the level to basically, I would say, to cut down the stress on the different the labs and the doctors before, and provide the first step investigations to be done right at the comfort of a particular user. These are few of the I was just saying that the digital healthcare market is not just limited to a pharmaceutical supply chain. It is not limited to just screening and diagnostics. The digital healthcare market is being divided under, you can say, around 10 to 12 segments, where the different companies are being divided under different segments. We have clinical intelligence and enablement. This basically helps, these are all tools, which are software tools, which are help providers and the payers make clinical decisions to deliver these solutions more effectively, the care more effectively and efficiently. For example, if a person needs certain let's say oxygen supply at home, if I have an asthmatic patient and that person needs instead of being admitted to the hospital, that person needs a portable oxygen cylinder at their native place, at their home. These startups are providing healthcare, they are providing assistance at that level. We have few startups like CML Surgical. They help us in providing these robotic surgical procedures more efficiently. They help our service providers who are making performing the laparoscopic surgeries, the CMR surgeries, and they are trying to bridge the gap and help in efficient performance of those surgical requirements. So we have this clinical intelligence and requirements there. The pharma supply chain is something which we all know. So it's not just pharmacy, it's not just netmeds, it's not just capsule. We have a lot other pharmaceutical supply chains which are allowing us to provide our services at home. So these are few of the potential areas where the healthcare services can be provided. We have screening and diagnostics, where the consumer testing, MRI scans, the different scans, not just MRI scans, the different imagings, and the pathological investigations, those are all being done and they have been categorized under this category, screening and diagnostics. Virtual care delivery. Virtual care delivery is online interactions with the healthcare professionals. So it is not just Practo, not just Justice. We have other like Doctor on Demand, the Bright MD, the Genome. These are all few startups which are providing this online interactions between the healthcare professionals, not just the doctors, but also the therapists, the psychotherapists, consultants, counselors, not just consultants, counselors basically, to help bridge this gap and provide our virtual care. Then we have this disease management and therapeutics. Disease management help consumers and patients uh, prevent, manage, and treat their own health conditions. These days, we all have these Fitbits, which are too much in use. There are, apart from this Fitbits, there are also few devices like smart contact lenses are there, which collect the data which is used, which is captured by a person, and then analyze it. How, like, what other services does a person need? Like, is his vision now clear, or is he getting, or do I need to adjust the settings of that contact lens, or services related to those? So we have smart contact lenses. Then something which is which might not be let's say, a problem, or which we might not feel that this is a potential requirement, but we have hyperactivity which is coming up in children. We call it as ADHD, the attention deficit hyperactivity, activity in children. So there are prescribed video games which helps children to manage their hyperactivity and control that hyperactivity, and then channel it to some fruitful way. So we might feel that okay, a particular child is too active, it is hyperactive, but then apart from above a certain level, that hyperactivity is also problematic. So there are startups which are dealing with these prescribed, the medically prescribed video games, not just any video games, medically prescribed video game interventions are taking place now. Then telehealth is something which we all know about. It is not just about remote telemedicine, it deals about remote monitoring, the remote diagnostics and therapy and coaching, which I've been talking about a number of times in my presentation till now. Another thing is drug discovery and clinical trials. Over the last 1 year, the clinical trials have been limited because of the lockdown and the social distancing. The clinical trials about the new drugs have been limited. So these are few of the startups which are dealing with drug discovery, that is uh, the analysis of the new medicines, or the most efficient and effective medicines, and their clinical trials are being done. Then apart from just their clinical trials, they also manage, we have this domain of real world evidence. When certain trials are being done, the data is taken care of by some data center. Again, in this current scenario, we have this area which is there of managing that healthcare data. I already told you, we these days we have technologies like blockchain managing that healthcare data. So that real world data is being analyzed, and the usage and the potential benefits or the risk, they are being analyzed and forwarded to the appropriate stakeholders by the companies under this real world evidence segment. So if you see, the healthcare market is not just limited to our administrative automation, which includes our patient monitoring right at the hospital level, or at the pathological labs level, or at the doctor's level. It goes from the patient data to the providing our service, bridging the gap between our service providers and our consumers, then providing the medicines, the again health plan and benefits management, the insurance providers. A number of virtual insurance providers have come up these days. Then analyzing the real data which has been generated because of the clinical trials and the drug R&D, and the specialty care for certain special requirements for certain other diseases apart from the COVID-19, which had already existed and they are continuing to exist, and the work providing virtual care delivery. So we see, apart from these, there are few other categories which are available in the healthcare market. So the point of discussing these healthcare markets here was just to identify that when we are talking about healthcare market or the digital healthcare market, we're not just talking about building a software for analyzing the patients, for keeping the patient's records. It's not just a patient record management system like we used to do a library management system, the classical library management system during our engineering days. The digital healthcare market has is much more. It is much more than managing a patient's record. And even in the management of the patient records, it's not just about an Excel sheet where I can just enter the details and just enter the details about what all medicines were prescribed or what was a previous prescription. It is now moving over to providing to what can be the further prescriptions, what can be which particular medicine can be substitute, have the different substitutes. So these are few of the categories which had been designed by the CB Insights research under in 2019. We can see a few of them are almost the same. Like we have the digital therapeutics there, the pharma supply chain, all of them, the categories are more or less same. The diagnostics there have been segregated under imaging, the pathology, the other diagnostics. So it is not just this COVID-19 pandemic which has been the root cause for the digital healthcare market. This market is there since the past, I would say, a decade or more. But it has the COVID-19 pandemic has made us realize the importance of this digital healthcare market, and it has made us realize the gap between the current healthcare market and the digital healthcare market, and the requirement for the digital healthcare market, and the potential where we can work upon. So now these are a few of the companies. I would say this in the 2020, we have over 150 startups which have raised $20 billion as their funding. I already told you we had few of the partnerships, the startups over there which have received huge amount of funding. These are some of the 12 unicorns, the companies which are valued at about $1 billion and more, and they focus on the different healthcare solutions, the digital healthcare solutions. They provide platforms for remote care, medication delivery services, to health insurance platforms, to assisting surgeons during procedures. Few of the startups have received angel funding, and they have like these are few of the examples. Ondra Health have it develops diagnostic solutions for sleep disorders. There are startup solutions for explicitly for LGBT community. Then there are psychedelic medicines company which helps in dealing with the psychedelic medicines. There are also a partnership with key industry players like Happify Health, who deals with digital therapeutics in medical health in partnership with the American Heart Association, Sanofi, and Cigna. So we can see there are a number of healthcare startups which are working and have received immense funding. So that provides us with the opportunity and the motivation that yes, these startups are not just any software building systems, they are a huge startup which is gaining a lot of attention these days, and which has grown about many folds in the past 1 year, and is definitely here to stay. It is not something that okay, the pandemic is slowing down now. It's the vaccinations are there, so this digital healthcare market is somewhere going down. No, that's why I showed this market analysis of 2019. So right in 2019, when the pandemic was not so hit, the startups were there and they were doing pretty well, and we can see we have a huge amount of fundings which they are receiving, and the support from both the consumers and all different types of stakeholders. We can see in this that the clinical intelligence and enablement is a leading category of software enabled solutions, that is bridging the gap between the consumers and the users, the providers, service providers. So digitizing those. Earlier, we just like if you visit some hospital and they tell us that fine, a person needs n number of requirements at their work at their home, then we used to just that those service providers were not digitally very active. So that is being taken care of now with the help of these software enabled solutions, and it forms as a major segment amongst all the different healthcare domains. that amongst the different telehealth companies, uh, the telemedicines platform and the remote monitoring and diagnostic platforms, they are major contributors in the subcategory if I talk about the telehealth. Why am I talking about telehealth? Because telehealth is something which we use a lot these days. And telehealth is not just about, it has different subcategories. It's about telemedicines platform, it is about remote monitoring, it's about therapy and coaching, it's about virtual primary care. That's the first care. Like I know a number of my knowns who were hit by this COVID, and instead of they getting admitted to the hospital, they were guided with virtual primary care. We had this Max and Medanta. They released their brochures guiding the people about their different virtual care packages. So that was pretty optimized way. I would say it was a pretty effective solution in dealing with the infrastructure gap which we have these days. So that because there are not just as COVID, there are a number of different other healthcare requirements which if we are privileged enough, we would see that we would seek for medical assistance at the hospitals, but the requirement is not so huge. That is the if I am affected by a disease, let's say dengue or malaria, then it is not mandatory for every dengue or malaria patient to be admitted to the hospital. Primary care at my home is also sufficient and is enough to manage me, or I can easily manage my healthcare requirements with the help of these few virtual primary care startups which are there. Like I already told you, we had these Max and Medantas which had released different packages across, and the packages ranged from how many visits per let's say fortnight do you want, by the what kind of visits do you want? Do you want just a nurse who is there right at the beginning of your and the first day and on the 14th day, or just do you want every weekly checkups, or do you want that you should be there should be someone who is taking your oximeter readings every day? So we had the different packages according to the different requirements. So this virtual primary care is also a very important segment. That's why you can see this area is has grown to about 11%, which was, as far as my knowledge goes, it was not so huge earlier. Then telepharmacy and RX subscriptions, the doctor subscriptions. Now, subscriptions is something which we basically have heard about when we are dealing with our excuse me. Yeah, subscriptions is when we are buying a product, but if any of you have come across, we these days we have doctor subscriptions as well. Like for the first visit, you are supposed to pay a certain amount, and for the next visits, if you again visit the doctor, let's say within a week or so, the visit is free, and if you visit after the week or so, then the visit has charged with a different amount. So we have this again, the telepharmacy and doctor's prescriptions again as a huge contributor, and the virtual assistants like the bots, the chat bots, something which is also being done and taken care of by our Arogya Setu and different chatbots which are there with different service providers, whether it is lab testing. Lalpath Lab also has those virtual assistants are there. They provide us, okay, what are your what kind of symptoms do you feel? Okay, we suggest that you can be if you are feeling fatigue, and if you have shortness of breath, and if you have a medical history of high blood pressure or something, then you must undergo few of these tests. We would recommend you to undergo few of these tests. So virtual assistants at those levels, which help in again dealing with the inadequate supply of the medical personnel, as well as the assistants, the help a person to work at their own ease. And not just India, the healthcare startups are have grown tremendously, and we can see about 77% of the healthcare startups are there or working successfully in the United States, and and the rest have been segregated between China, UK, France, Canada, and other countries like South Asian countries and, yeah, other different countries, European countries. Now, these are few of the emerging digital healthcare hubs. Like in the previous slide, I already discussed. The China is has started few of those healthcare setups where we have the V Doctor, the Tencent Trusted Doctors, which provide online and offline primary care services. There are other healthcare startups which are focusing on payment models for expensive drugs, because it is not just any drugs. There are few drugs which are quite expensive, so they focus on the payment models for those. So there are startups we dealing with those. We have in UK, for example, we have 5 startups from UK which are featured on the list of emerging digital health hubs, and they're dealing with drug discovery, the imaging and diagnostics, the image analysis, the image understanding which is being done, and the remote patient monitoring. France has few startups which are dealing with sleep health, that is the sleep disorders we already discussed in our presentation earlier, and the health insurance. Then we have other startups like which are discovering about antibody discovery, and the cognitive healthcare startups are there. So these are few of the emerging digital healthcare hubs. And if you would want, I can share these links. I don't think there's too much of time left for me to discuss few of these healthcare startups. You can check them out. There are few of the healthcare startups which are the top 50 startups and the top 10 startups in India, which are which have received immense funding, and they're dealing with our technology and trying to provide an effective healthcare system. So with this, I just wanted to introduce you guys about the uh, arena of the digital healthcare, and not just limited to a patient monitoring system or a medicines doorstep delivery system or a telemedicine system. It was not just limited to that. So I just wanted you to explore that digital healthcare is not limited. It ranges with our administrative models right to our whatever area. If you talk about, if you want to visit a hospital, all any of those segments, so any all the healthcare providers and the personnel are considered. So I would want to know if any of you have any questions or something.
Any question from the participants? Any question if you want to ask regarding incubation center, the facilities, what incubators are getting, those also you can ask from Chester. I think Chester, there are no questions.
Okay,
So
sir.
thanks a lot for giving us time to adjust at this situation.
My pleasure, sir.
And we want you to see in our university campus now, because we are now open. And on 8th of next month, we are going to have a very important inaugural event. I have already messaged in the group.
Yeah.
So we want you also to be there. 8th of March. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Our deputy CM and most probably CM and both are coming.
Okay.
So that would be a good platform to interact with them. So thanks, Chester. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Deepti. Deepti is Director of Family Script. And now Deepti is in the final year of our architect program. But when she joined this incubation program, at that time she was in second year, I guess. Yes, Deepti? So after having 3 to 4 years now. What we have seen that the way she is handling her company, that is really amazing these days. One more achievement goes with the that as you all know that we signed number of MOUs with national and international organizations. So one MOU we signed 4 years back with Nexus Incubation Hub. Nexus Incubation Hub is in Embassy of America, that American center that is situated in KG Mark. In association with that, Deepti got a chance to attend a very important incubation related program for 2 weeks with University of Texas in Austin. She has attended that also, and that was a great moment for all of us for our incubation center also. So Deepti, now we want to listen from you about your incubating company, that is your own private limited Prarabdha, and also we want our students, most of our students want to interact with you, understand what the facilities you are getting from our incubation center. Over to you, Deepti.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. My presentation today is majorly for fellow students from our university and other education institutions. Since, as sir has already mentioned, I'm currently a student and I'm also managing my business. So I feel it is important that all of us understand this opportunity which we have these days with the help of our university administration and several government schemes, so that we can pursue a business idea as students. So that is majorly what my presentation today is about. It is also sort of a general advice for anyone who wants to start a business, but as a student, I have focused on how one can actually coordinate their academics while also exploring ideas with a business. So I will share my screen. I hope the screen is visible. So is it visible? If you can confirm once.
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you. So coordinating academics and startup. As a student entrepreneur, it gets sort of a demanding atmosphere when you also have a business to look after and also have to take care of your academic coursework. So I have tried to build on from my own personal experience some tips and some starting points which other students can make use of, especially in the environment which we have today, where we see a lot of students coming up with new ideas and a lot of major companies today which were started by the founders when they were students. So to make use of that atmosphere, I have tried to consolidate some points over here. So it's called campus entrepreneurship, like the word. You are in your campus and while you're also pursuing entrepreneurship. So we all know that it's never too early to start thinking about a business idea and how to bring it to life. We have some major companies as examples. So we have Facebook, we have Google, we have Dell and Microsoft. These were all conceived in dormitories of colleges, and now they are major leading tech giants of the world. In fact, FedEx, interestingly, was a research project of the founder, which he then pursued further to make a business plan out of it. So a lot of innovation has already been there in campus atmosphere when people are still studying and getting to explore new ventures. That is where a lot of business ideas actually emerge from, and we have history to prove that for us. So there's a precedent which we have in front of us to look up to, and especially over the years this situation has actually gotten better in terms of the facilities that students receive for pursuing business these days. So today, with the help of several government schemes for startups, especially in India in the recent years, we have seen a lot of ventures which support student entrepreneurship. We have several university incubation centers. So just like in our University, we have Anveshan Foundation. So these are the resources which are actually creating an environment to boost innovation and exploration of ideas within the university structure. So with the help of all of these systems today, we are able to be in campus while also turning ideas into reality. But then again, this whole structure comes up with its own challenges. Uh, but nonetheless, it is a unique opportunity which we have today. So I have coined this term called a campuspreneur for someone who's still studying and also pursuing their business idea together. So campuspreneur is one interesting personality to one interesting personality to be and to learn from. Uh, we have seen a lot of new startups in India also, which have been founded by people who were students in their campuses. So there's definitely a lot which we can learn from these existing startups, and not only in India but also across the world. Uh, most of the leading companies today were in fact conceived on campuses. So before getting to how to start being a campus trainer, it is important we understand the meaning of the word entrepreneur. As students, I personally was very daunted by the fact of how to become an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to do something, but what are the different aspects involved with it? When someone is just in college, it gets an intimidating setup. So it is important that we get back to the roots of this concept, get to the meaning of the words to really understand what we are trying to pursue. So an entrepreneur is someone who starts a new business venture by innovating, developing, and producing a new product. So these are the three keywords: to innovate, develop, and produce. Innovate being a major point over here. So to innovate, develop, and produce a new product or a service. An entrepreneur is not a business owner like we have owners of several different stores, but an entrepreneur is someone who develops their own innovative concept and then turn it into a profitable business. So it is important that we understand this meaning of the word before we actually dive into the complexities of the environment which the word entrepreneur brings with itself. So we can definitely learn from the experiences of other uh, famous entrepreneurs which we have in the world today who started as students. So just like I discussed in the beginning, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they were all ideas which were conceived by the founders when they were actually studying. Studying uh, really opens up an opportunity for us to explore. This is one real big opportunity which we have as students, which not a lot of people have after graduation. It is that we can really explore our different avenues for business while actually having the comfort of being in a university and still studying. So this is sort of a failure proof idea. Even though you fail, you are still in the safety of still being in your university, still studying in colleges. So this actually provides an opportunity for you to try big ideas and fail. This is not something where um, you can be stopped from trying out something big. This is an avenue where you can actually think out of random thoughts and try to make it a reality without really worrying of how it turns up. So building on to the experiences of other famous young student entrepreneurs, we have Michael Dell, so the founder of Dell. He started when he was just 19, and he was also a student of the University of Texas at Austin, where I had the privilege of getting acquainted with business entrepreneurship techniques with the help of Anveshan and opportunity from Nexus Incubation Center, like Sir said. So Michael Dell actually started when he was in first year of college itself, and from there he explored the idea of getting into the industry of electronics and developing that idea into the big tech giant which we know of today in the world. Similarly, we have Richard Branson. He's the founder of Virgin Records. He started with a magazine when he was still in college, and that idea of a student magazine took him further to different opportunities of engaging with people who were into business, who were into finance, and he had the idea to develop this avenue further, and that is what it has resulted in today, the Virgin mega store, which we know of as today. So even he started at a young age of 22 when he was still in college. We have Matthew Millenbeck. So he's the founder of Automatic, which owns WordPress. He was also again a young college student when he started with this idea. He had this thought of creating something unique online, of letting people have a channel to express their views, and that is sort of the start from where the journey of him began, and WordPress is the final product which we see today. So even that was an idea which emerged from a campus. Then we have our very own Indian entrepreneur Ritesh Agarwal. He's the founder of Oyo. He was also a student when he conceived the idea of Oyo Room. So it was actually founded as Oravel when he was just 18 years old. But then with the opportunities he got, he developed the idea further, and in 2012 developed the idea and rebranded it into Oyo Rooms, into the successful platform which we know of today. So all these experiences, um, they they let us know how conducive the environment of being in campus is to explore new ideas and start working on them. And this is really something of an opportunity which we have while we're still students. So I really hope that participants today who are still students get inspired by these stories and make use of the fact that we are still students in our campuses, in our different colleges, and get started with the business ideas which we have in our mind. Because with the kind of resources which we have today, pursuing a business idea is a really fulfilling, really uh, enriching experience which we should make use of. So, how to become a student entrepreneur? I started with my venture when I was in my second year. So the idea was conceived when I was in my first year itself, and then in my second year, we went with our business idea to Anveshan, and our idea was selected, and that is where the journey began for our startup. So today we have a lot more advanced features, a lot more support systems to actually help a student realize their ideas into potential businesses. So I've tried to compile some pointers of how one can approach this venture of becoming a student entrepreneur. Number one is to evaluate your business skills and knowledge. While we're still in college, we have that opportunity to you try out new things, learn more about different ventures. And this is also the time where we should actually analyze ourselves. If you know that I want to do a business, I want to become an entrepreneur, then the first point should be to analyze your personality, assess yourself, what are your strong points, what are your weak points. Once you know your weak points, you can work on it. And once you know what skills you have which you are good at, then you can actually harness those skills to further your business journey. So for example, you know that you are good at managing time, or you know that you are good at being a team leader, then you can use that potential of yours to enhance your business journey. And if there are some weak points which you are aware of, this is the time that you start working on them before you actually get on to a full-fledged uh, business venture. Number two is come up with a good idea. So once you started, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur, you have assessed your weak points, you have done an analysis of your skills which you have. Then comes up with then the time comes to identify what you want to do, identify the business sector which you want to venture into, the business idea which you want to develop. So one of the main reasons that a lot of businesses fail is that the founders don't really hit on the solid concept. So from personal experience, I can say that before diving right into the business idea which you have, it is important that you sit down, have a piece of paper, and just list down why you think your idea is good enough to be a business. So, for example, these are some pointers which I have included, which you can question yourself when you have an idea in your mind. Number one, is there a need for your product or your service? Do you feel there is a market for the kind of product or the service which you are proposing? Then identify who exactly needs it. It is important that you define your target audience. It is important that you understand their needs and analyze uh, what other options they have right now. So if you're proposing a product A, find out what are the people using instead of it right now, and why product A will be better than what they are already used to. Then the third point builds on to that. Is there a similar product or service available in the market today? So that is in fact analyzing your competition. So what are the other alternatives which are available today, and how is your product or your service better than that? And lastly, what's the reasonable sales forecast? So given the fact that when we are a student, it's always an enriching experience to start up with a business idea, but it's also equally important that it is something which can have sales in the market. There's a need that you do a proper research for it, that there's a reasonable demand for it in the market, and only then I would advise you to begin with it, so that it can be a fruitful venture, not just in terms of experience, but also in terms of the business which you create. And this is the stage where a lot of people get scared. What should I do? I want to be an entrepreneur, but what idea should I do? I do not have anything unique in my mind. So the point here is that it doesn't have to be absolutely new. You cannot always create something which wasn't already there, especially with the progress which we have already made over the years. It's sort of difficult to actually find something out of the box, but your idea has to be at least something that is different from what is existing. For example, you want to start your own cafe. Now there is nothing new in it, but you need to find some pointers, you need to find some things which makes it different from the cafes which are already today. This is in fact what Starbucks has done. Starbucks as a startup, as the basic service of offering coffee, that wasn't new. Every other coffee shop did that, but they built on their service, they built on their customer experience. So what makes Starbucks different and in fact successful today is the kind of user experience which they give. That is their main selling point, that is their USP. So what your idea which you pursue to do, which you uh, decide to work on further, that doesn't have to be absolutely new, but you should find out the points which make it different from other uh, from other existing alternatives in the market today. Then comes finding your perfect market. So when you are in college, we get a lot of uh, assignments where we have to do research for several different topics. This is quite similar to it. This is where we can use those skills for our business venture also. This is one opportunity where being a student is helpful, since you know the process, you know uh, the set of mind how to approach a research problem. Just use that skill for finding your market, for researching the demand for your product or service in the market. So it involves gathering data about the subject in question, and studying your target market. So you have identified that these kind of people are the ones who will be my products or services users. So the research into this will go one step further in analyzing the different characteristics, the different data about your target market, what the customers want, and how are you pinpointing their needs and solving that through your product or service. Then number 4 is creating a business plan. So once you have identified your market, once you have identified your target audience and researched into the demand for it, it's time to create a business plan. Now, a business plan is also important for the next steps, which include reaching out to potential investors and supporters for your business idea. A business plan, generally people perceive it to be a daunting task, but it doesn't have to be that way, especially as students. We often get intimidated by the idea of creating technical documents. But if we get down again to the roots of the word, to the roots of what a business plan should be like, it is not really that difficult a task. So basically, what a business plan is a roadmap that outlines your business goals, what you are going to do, how you are going to do, and what will it result in. Sort of similar to what we do for our own research projects in colleges. So a business plan varies for different kinds of industries and different kinds of markets, but the approach remains similar. What you are going to do, how you are going to do, and what will result out of it. After that comes creating a brand. Now, this is a really important aspect of getting started with a business idea, because a brand is the first thing which a customer will see when they interact with your product or service. A brand includes your business name and your business logo. So that is the first point of interaction for your service and your customer. So it is important that you develop that, so that it really reflects your values and the principles behind your business idea. And a lot of work needs to go in this step, which is to create a brand. After creating a brand, the next step is to decide the location and the platform. So depending on what kind of business you are planning to do, you would need a physical location or a virtual location. A virtual location is a website. So, and if you are offering a physical product, a physical service, then you will need a location. So for example, you would need a store or a shop, or a place where you manufacture your products. So that needs to be determined before the further steps of growing your business. And again, for this, you need to go back to step 3. You need to go back to what you had found when you did your market research, and where your customers are located, where your customers usually spend more time. That will determine the ideal place where you would locate your own market, whether it is online or whether it is in the physical world. Then comes getting registered. So with the help of several government services today, getting a startup registered is uncomplicated now. So earlier it used to be a complex process, but these days it is really easy. We have the Startup India website, we have our university incubation centers to help us out with it, and several other forums which actually help student entrepreneurs to understand the technicalities of getting a business registered, what are the different licenses, and other things, including idea patents, intellectual property, and trademark registration. So these are some important things which we should keep in mind before getting out in the market, because then you have something legal to back your idea, and it is also important in a way to protect your idea from being copied or being illegally implemented somewhere else. So it is a bit more technical from the previous steps, but again, it is something which is important before you get out in the market. So be it registering your logo or registering your ideas, intellectual property. These are some important steps which should be taken care of before you go out with the further steps. Then number 8 is getting a team. So it is always very important that you have a team with you, where you can find different skill sets which your business idea requires, and then find appropriate people to fill in that spot. This is one important thing which we should keep in mind, especially as student entrepreneurs. What we generally do is we just take in our friends to join us with our business idea, and we say, oh, come on, you're my friend, you should help me out with this. But again, it is also important that you identify what quality, what responsibility will your friend be able to help you out with it. It's one thing to have friends and family support you, but to actually be on board in the team requires a different set of skills and responsibilities, which you should keep in your mind, so that work is actually distributed among the different team members and carried out in an effective manner. And again, as students, this will not only help you in getting a business idea further, but it will also free up your time to catch up with college assignments and tests and other study obligations. So getting a team is important, and um, when we are in campuses, it is also easy to find people who are like-minded, who are uh, ambitious about the same things as us. So this is something which we can treat as an opportunity, being student entrepreneurs. Then after forming a team comes out seeking a mentor, seeking a helpful mentor. Again, this is one thing which student entrepreneurs have uh, quite as a privilege, which is that we always have professors who have good pieces of advice for us, who are ready to help us out. And also, a lot of experienced business people are willing to help student entrepreneurs more than they would be willing to help an established competitor. And these days, we have a lot of investors who are well versed with different sets of industries to help out student entrepreneurs. So, this is one important privilege which uh, we as student entrepreneurs can make use of today. And lastly is raising funds. Raising funds is an important aspect of starting a business, because it serves as an initial investment to cover the ongoing expenses of a startup before you get a profit. Then again, with this step, we have a lot of systems, we have a lot of structural mechanisms to help one out with this process of raising funds. And as students, there are a lot of different avenues where one can approach. So, for example, there are incubation centers in most universities today. There are small business grants and loans, also several schemes from the government for such startups by students. We also have several angel investors and several groups. For example, we have TIE, which can help one to get in touch with potential investors and get funds for the startup. And then, of course, there is crowdfunding and bootstrapping as other avenues of raising funds for one's ideas. So these steps, so from 1 to 10, this is this sort of roughly identifies how to tackle on the idea of starting a business while you're still in college. So most of these steps are similar to what another person who is not in college would follow. But this also, what I have discussed so far in these 10 points, it also covers the aspects of several opportunities which a student has over others who are not students while starting a business. So, for example, all these uh, incubation centers which we have and government policies, these are really helpful, especially in today's time, because we have this extensive support network to start out a business idea and to go further with it. But once we have started a business idea, once we have done all of this, done a market research, and started after registering our business, it again gets back to the same point of being a student as well as an entrepreneur. Because again, you have to strike the balance between what you are doing academically in your coursework to get your degree, and also taking your business forward, getting profits, and expanding it further. So I can personally, from my experience, I have tried to include some points of how to strike the balance between these two. So I am running my startup. So I have my project Family Script, and I'm also a student at IGDTU, studying architecture, as Sir had mentioned. So from my own personal experience, there are some tips which I would like to share with other students over here so that they can also build on to this. And um, I'm also still learning. I am also uh, exploring out other avenues. But I have tried to reflect back onto my journey so far. I started with Family Script when I was new, when I was in my second year in college, and now I'm in my final year. So I've tried to consolidate some major points which all student entrepreneurs can take care of today when they are also exploring a business venture. So, first and foremost is to set your priorities straight. And this will happen a lot of time when you are running a business as a student. You will often get uh, challenges of where to focus. You will have your test one day, and you will also have your pitching session the same day. So, setting priorities is very important. And one easy way to figure out your goals is to see into the future. How do you see yourself in terms of your academic course after getting your degree, and how do you see yourself in your business venture? So when you have your goals set in mind, making choices will be easier. Making setting out your priorities will be easier once you have your goals and you have your aims set, both business wise and academics wise. Manage your time effectively. Now, this is one thing which almost all of us, student or not, get confronted with. But again, we all know that time is not an excuse. All of us have the same 24 hours, and some students uh, do wonders within those 24 hours. They also do their academics, and uh, they also follow their business ideas, while others probably just do one out of those two in the same 24 hours. But it's all about management. No choices over the other. Both are correct, but it all depends on how one manages time. And as students, it can get challenging at times when you have your assignments to submit and deadlines, but you also have your business to look after. So, for example, with our university timetable and with our coursework, we all have that set, but spending some time on our business is our responsibility. So, we need to be disciplined personally to actually get back to our responsibilities as a startup founder, and to take care of our works, of our deadlines as a business person as well. And starting a business always comes with these challenges. It gets smoothened out as we progress with our business idea and our coursework, but the starting point is always the toughest part. So it is important that we learn to manage our time effectively with these. And there are several tools for um time management today. We have options like Asana to have our work segregated, and we can have our priorities right. So we can make use of those as student entrepreneurs to uh, get to the best of both worlds. Uh, Another factor to keep in mind is to use university resources to your advantages. To your advantage. So as students, this is one biggest, really biggest opportunity which I believe we have, is that we have access to free resources as a student. Uh, in fact, interestingly, a lot of people who start their businesses at later points in their life, they have difficulty in accessing several uh, resources, several literature resources or practical resources, which we as students have easy access to. For example, we can always contact our professors for technical help and for guidance. We have university resources, for example, labs and libraries, which we can make use of to develop our product prototypes and further work on our ideas. And most importantly, we have incubation centers at universities. So, like we have our Mission Foundation in IGDTW, we have always had this avenue of reaching out to them. We have several sessions like this one today to contact other people in the same field, to contact experts and other helpful people out there. So this is one really big opportunity which we have as student entrepreneurs, and which we should definitely take use of. The next point to keep in mind is that we need to understand that academics and business are not mutually exclusive. You do not have to treat your business as one different channel and your academic coursework as different. There is actually a possibility to link both of them together, especially with the subjects which we choose. For example, there is an option for electives in most of the universities. So one can always take up subjects which can be linked to their business as well. So what happens this way is that you're not only learning through your core subjects, but you're also learning how to become a better entrepreneur through that coursework. So this is something which can always be done, and I have personally made use of that. As I'm an architecture student, I have uh, many a times chosen elective courses, for example, business prototyping and design thinking, which has also helped me to uh, implement in my own business idea, to uh, take idea from my subject coursework and implement it to family script. So this is something which we as students have an opportunity to do, which not a lot of other people have the privilege of. So just like using university resource, this is also another important aspect which we can take advantage of. Then comes putting business and academic work together. So building on to the previous point of having coursework which can link your business and academic together, there are also projects which we can, as students, do to help us with both of these fields. For example, we often receive assignments for case studies or product prototyping or market research, coding out something. For our academic coursework, so we can also always use that to implement for our business idea. For example, uh, as a student of coding, if you have an assignment to code out a program, why not just code out the product which you are planning to do for your business? So you also get your points for the academic project, and you also benefit business wise, since you have now already created your product. So this is one way that coursework and business work can be merged together as students. And last but not the least is expressing yourself. As students, we get a lot of opportunities to get in touch with new people, get in touch with professors and experts. Uh, and just like I have mentioned before in the previous slides, we have incubation center to actually have the option to attend several mentorship sessions, to approach different student competitions which we have. And these always provide us with an opportunity to get in touch with people and discuss our ideas with them. So expressing expressing our ideas with others is the most important aspect which we should heavily make use of, because we not only gain appreciations for our idea, but most importantly we get critiques for our ideas. As student entrepreneurs, we're not mostly perfect about our business idea, and of course we are all always learning. So the kind of critiques which we get for a business idea through these competitions or through these sessions from experts and mentors is something which we can work on and develop for our own business idea. So this is one advantage which always comes with discussing and connecting with other people. And it also helps us identify connections out there who can help us further and who we can also help further. So, for example, if someone approaches you with similar ambitions, you both can support each other, and in the further stages of a business, we can actually make use of such connections. So, building a network is important in any business venture, and as students, it is only easier for us to actually approach different people. For example, a lot of people who start with new businesses in later stages of life, they might not have as many resources as a student, because many business people are ready to engage with students and share ideas with them as compared to other seasoned professionals. So this is the most important part. And expressing your idea, this is something which should always be there, right from the point you have conceived an idea in your mind till the point you make a registered company out of it. Always try to discuss your idea with others, build on your network, and build connections. Because it will always help one in the longer run, even during your college and even after you graduate. The network of people which you make is always going to help you in a positive way. So these are the pointers which I have built on from my personal experience and try to present it to other fellow students so that they can make use of it. And of course, there are several other points which can be added to this. But definitely, these few steps to keep in mind before, before expressing your idea and before starting a business venture can definitely help you better. So with that, I would like to end, and I hope that other students in the session today can benefit from this and actually get inspired to start their business ideas. And like sir has said, Anveshan Foundation really helps you with tackling your business idea and getting the resources, understanding the system, especially as students. And I have definitely benefited from it as a student. So I really hope this was helpful for aspiring students in the session today. And yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti. Thanks a lot. I am 100% sure that our students, they must be inspired from your journey of entrepreneurship. And now you are in the final year. Final year means the 5th year, na? Deepti, 5th year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Deepti joined our incubation program in the 2nd year, so 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and now she is in 5th year. So she is one of our success story. And you all, the students, if Deepti can do, you all can also do. If you want to start your company, you want to stay with us, you want to become director of your company, everything can be done. So Deepti, first of all, thanks a lot. The presentation was made beautifully in 2 different parts, as it is always there with architect students. Firstly, you disclose about all the 10 points which are required actually, and then after you explained about your company very well. So from my side, it was a plain and it was a clear presentation. Thanks, Deepti. Any question from our participants? Please ask friendly because you can ask anything from her.
I think since I am a student, others can feel more free to ask me questions. I am just like all of you others in the participants.
Can you, because you are so experienced, can you give some ideas on the startups we can think of during the college? Many students, they start startups for online classes. They provide online lectures and many have made a website on that. Our seniors have told us about that. But any other ideas which you
wanted to ask that
think?
think kare. in which direction we have to think for our startups and all?
That's one question which a lot of us face. In fact, I also tried to address it in the presentation. What topic to pursue? So my personal advice would be to find topics which are similar to your coursework. For example, I was doing architecture, and in architecture we have a lot of design thinking and user experience studies. So my venture, which is Family Script, it also deals with understanding customers and designing unique products for them in a creative manner. So I was able to find different avenues where I could link my business as well as my coursework, and it is always helpful to have something which you can link with your business and your academics. So I would always advise you to find topics which are related to your academic coursework, and then like I had mentioned in the presentation, then you can always find options to do case studies for your business idea while also submitting as an academic project. So try to find out whatever venture you can also link with your academic coursework, with any of the subject, for example, so that you can make use of both of the worlds and also balance it together.
That means pivoting your caliber in academics also and in business venture also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Deepti, can you show us your website? Your website is also actually very good. So if you can show us familyscript.com.
Yes, sir. I will
But just see
open it.
how beautifully it is made. First, please share your screen.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry, I forgot. Is it visible, sir?
Yeah, it is visible.
So this is our website. So for example, these illustrations which we have done are from fellow students of architecture department, who are my friends and my juniors. So there's always this option to balance both academic work and business work with it. These are some images of the product. So we make customized books, family books for our clients, and we document their personal history and their personal journey throughout all these years as a family. And we try to document that with personalized cartoon characters and personalized layouts. So just like I was saying, this really has helped me personally with both my architectural coursework also and with my startup venture. So these are the different projects which we have done, as you can see. So this is one family book. This is in fact the first family book which we had done and which we had shown to Anveshan Foundation when we pitched our business idea, which course is selected. And then above this were the projects which we have done later after we got registered as a company. So it's familyscript.com. You can always visit it. And it also has our team contact and customer testimonials. So you can also reach out to me in case you need some help with pursuing business idea as a student. So yes, that's it.
Great work, Deepti. Thank you, Deepti. Any other question from the students? Vidhi, Kritika, Varsha, Divya, Shweta. But I want you all to come into this particular platform, right? And you can also advertise at least about the familyscript.com. They are from our first batch. Now we are asking application for the 5th batch.
Yes, of course.
I think as students in our university at least have a very good opportunity with Anveshan Foundation. So
that
so
is
just
okay,
like,
Deepti, but they should be serious about it. But they are too busy in other activities.
I hope they now find the inspiration to do business with it. I think a lot of students are always scared that they will not be able to balance time and attention, but it's really interesting, I would say, and it's really an enriching experience, and you can always explore ideas when you are in university. This is one opportunity which we have as students compared to other professionals, that we can always try out whatever idea which we have and
Right.
approach it with a business idea.
And Deepthi, indeed, we are also lucky to have you. You, Manasi, Rashmi, Jyoti, Sakshi, they all are doing wonderful job. Many of you might not be knowing that one of our incubator, Manasi, her turnover means money-wise that has cost 25 lakhs of rupees, a small tenure. So, means girls are doing a wonderful job. So if you have some idea, you have something, you can always come to us and you can share your business idea. If it will be having any kind of wow factor USP, definitely I will be with you. So thank you, Deepti. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Bye. Good day.
Thank you, sir.
I hope all the participants have filled this feedback form.